Picture this. A daredevil is jumping a motorcycle over a massive line of buses parked end to end. They hit the ramp at exactly 40 meters per second. But once those wheels leave the ramp, what single invisible force determines exactly where they're going to land? Think about it for a second. Revving the engine in midair? That does absolutely nothing to change the path of the bike. The horizontal speed is completely locked in. From the split second they go airborne, their fate is dictated entirely by just one invisible force, pulling them down: gravity.
And that invisible, perfectly predictable dance between forward momentum and downward pull, that's what we call projectile motion. It's literally the physics of flying objects, and it governs the whole shebang, from a leaping motorcycle to a kicked soccer ball, right down to a fired cannon.
By the end of this lecture, you'll have this entirely figured out. We're going to break down the axes, run through the kinematic equations, tackle some awesome real-world examples like fireworks and volcanoes, and finally, we'll calculate maximum range. All right, let's jump straight into part 1, breaking down the axes, horizontal versus vertical.
So to really master two-dimensional kinematics, we kind of have to break the universe into two distinct parts, the horizontal and the vertical. But first, a quick definition. Projectile motion is simply the motion of any object thrown or projected into the air, where it's subject to only the acceleration of gravity. That object is our projectile, and the curved path it follows, that's its trajectory. Now, one quick caveat here. For these fundamental textbook scenarios, we're assuming air resistance is completely negligible. We really just want to understand the pure, uninterrupted physics of the trajectory first, before we complicate things.
Now here is the absolute core secret of projectile motion: independent axes. Horizontal motion on the x-axis and vertical motion on the y-axis are completely 100% independent of each other. Think of it like two separate movies playing on the exact same screen, but they are completely unaware of each other. The horizontal movie shows an object cruising along at a constant speed because there's zero acceleration pushing or pulling it horizontally. Meanwhile, the vertical movie shows an object accelerating downwards due to gravity. They're happening at the exact same time, but they do not affect each other at all. Which actually brings us to a super common point of confusion. I hear this all the time from students. Wait, doesn't throwing an object forward really fast keep it in the air longer? And the answer to that is an emphatic no. No way. Because those x and y axes are entirely independent, your horizontal speed has zero effect on your vertical falling time. Seriously, if you drop a ball straight down and perfectly fire another ball horizontally at 100 miles per hour from the exact same height, they will hit the ground at the exact same time. Horizontal speed only changes where it lands, not when.
Hold up. This right here is absolutely crucial. We need to nail down the exact force that's dictating that fall time. Since we generally define up as the positive direction on our y-axis coordinate system, that means gravity is pulling down. Therefore, vertical acceleration is a constant negative 9.80 meters per second squared. You're definitely going to want to burn that number into your brain.
Okay, moving right along to section 2, the kinematic equations, basically your ultimate problem-solving toolkit.
Now that we've got the basic idea of independent axes down, let's talk formulas. I want you to basically take a mental screenshot of this 4-step framework. Whenever you face a projectile problem, just do this. Step 1. Resolve the initial motion into its x and y components using some basic trig. Step 2. Treat them as two entirely independent motions. Step 3. Solve for your unknowns. And Step 4. Recombine them using the Pythagorean theorem to find your final total displacement and velocity.
Let's actually look at the equations for that second step. Notice the huge contrast here? For the horizontal x-axis, because acceleration is 0, the equation is beautifully simple. Distance just equals initial position plus velocity multiplied by time. But then, look at the vertical y-axis. It looks a bit messier, right? That's because we have to account for gravity. But here is the massive takeaway. Notice the one single variable both equations share? Time. T is the invisible bridge connecting your two independent movies.
All right, let's see this in action. Section 3, a real-world example using the fireworks apex.
Let's make this whole concept a lot easier to grasp with a real-life example. Imagine you're watching a massive fireworks display. A fireworks shell is shot into the air with an initial speed of 70 meters per second, launched at a steep angle of 75 degrees above the horizontal. Now, the pyrotechnicians have carefully timed the fuse to explode exactly at the highest point in its flight, which we call the apex. So how high exactly is that?
Well, to solve this, we rely on a golden rule of vertical motion. At the very top of a projectile's trajectory, that absolute apex
it momentarily stops going up just before it begins falling down. This means its vertical velocity at that exact microsecond is exactly 0. So by plugging a vertical velocity of 0 into our y-axis kinematic equations, we find the maximum height of this specific explosion is exactly 233 meters.
Okay, let's step it up a notch. Section 4. Another real-world example, but this time the Kilauea volcano.
So what happens when our projectile doesn't land at the nice, easy same height it started at? Let's travel to Hawaii for this one. Hawaii's Kilauea volcano is continuously active, ejecting these massive red-hot rocks. Imagine a rock is launched out of the volcano at 25 meters per second at a 35-degree angle. But unlike a perfectly flat football field, this rock strikes the side of the volcano at an altitude 20 meters lower than where it originally started.
Quick question for you to think about. How on earth do we figure out how long it's in the air if it lands 20 meters in the negative y direction? Well, because the final displacement is a negative number, solving this actually requires us to set up a quadratic equation using our vertical position formula. And when you run the math on that quadratic equation, you actually get two answers, one negative and one positive. But, since time doesn't go backward, we obviously use the positive one, which gives us a flight time of 3.96 seconds. And I really want to stress this once again. This 3.96 second airtime is dictated 100% by the vertical y-axis math. That 25 meters per second horizontal blast speed, it didn't keep the rock in the air a single millisecond longer.
Let's pull it all together now in Section 5, Calculating Maximum Range.
We've spent a ton of time totally separating the x and y axes, right? Well, let's bring them back together to figure out how far something travels horizontally. We call this range. Range is defined as the total horizontal distance traveled by a projectile on flat, level ground. And here's a pretty wild historical fact for you. The whole idea that horizontal and vertical motion are independent was first fully comprehended by Galileo. Seriously, he actually used this exact concept to predict projectile range, mostly for aiming military cannons.
So if you are launching and landing on flat, level ground, you get to use this beautifully elegant formula. It takes the initial speed, squares it, multiplies it by the sine of twice the launch angle, and then divides that whole thing by gravity. It's just one single equation that cleanly packages all our x and y variables together.
So, using that formula, if you want to shoot a cannon as far as physically possible, what angles should you use? Well, assuming no air resistance, the math definitively shows us that maximum range is always achieved at exactly a 45-degree angle. But here is a really fascinating quirk of the trigonometry. Any two complementary angles, meaning angles that perfectly add up to 90 degrees, will actually produce the exact same range. Think about it. If you shoot a projectile at 15 degrees, it travels flat and fast. If you shoot it at 75 degrees, it goes way, way up high and takes a long time to come down. But at the end of the day, they will both land in the exact same spot.
Which actually leads to a totally mind-bending question. Up until now, we've assumed the ground is perfectly flat, but the Earth is round, right? So what if your initial horizontal speed is so incredibly fast that as the projectile falls vertically, the Earth just curves away from underneath it at the exact same rate? Well, it just never hits the ground. It goes into orbit. It basically becomes a satellite, continuously falling but never, ever landing. That is literally the ultimate extension of projectile motion.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground today. Section 6, Summary and Next Steps.
Before we wrap this explainer up, let's quickly hit the key takeaways to make sure you've absolutely mastered this lecture. First, never forget x and y motions are completely independent. Second, your horizontal velocity remains perfectly constant. Third, your vertical motion is entirely dictated by the downward pull of gravity. And finally, when you face a problem, just break it into its horizontal and vertical components. Solve them separately using time as your bridge, and then recombine them. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought. If Galileo figured out how to aim a cannonball from a stationary cannon, what happens to all this math when the observer or the cannon itself is moving? Well, we're going to tackle adding velocities together in our next explainer. You definitely won't want to miss it.